Forward down the field. Charging to
team that will not yield.
62.
Blue and silver wave.
Standing true to
Rock.
I'll tell you what.
Second place in the NFC heading into the bye. Come on, man. If you would have told me that before the season, I would have told me that you're crazy. Even as optimistic as I was about this season, if you told me we were second place heading into our bye, I mean, come on, man. You know, not a lot of activity at the trade deadline, but that's fine. I trust in Brad Holmes. I see a lot of overreaction on Twitter. Same thing that happened on draft night, and look how that turned out.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the draft that Brad Holmes had, and you have people immediately after the draft like just clowning him, right? And this is a guy that, you know, he hasn't hit on every single draft pick, but he's hit on a lot. And so to not make a lot of moves at the deadline, I mean, I get the DBs, I get the DNs, but if you look at like who was available, it was a lot of guys that were, you know, good players, some great players, but had these expiring contracts and maybe just didn't fit the mold of what they're looking for in Detroit. So I don't know. You have the people that are so high in the Lions. You have the people that are like clowning our activity at the deadline. All I know is we're 6-2. We're going to the bye week. We're minus 1,400 favorites to win a division that we haven't won in over 30 years. Are we getting greedy?
Life is good. I would say that if we didn't get our asses whooped by the Ravens, but I think that brought us back down to earth. We have a great squad. I mean, easy schedule the rest of the way through. There's no reason we can't take the North and then get a top 3 seed in the NFC, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they just need to keep doing what they're doing. You know, the offense looks good. I think we're top 10 in total defense. I don't know exactly where we're at, but we're top 10. So like, could the defense use help? Sure. But are they good where they're at right now? Yeah. I mean, they're playing well. The defense looks great. The offense looks good besides a couple, stutters here and there. You can't really ask for much more. And sitting 6-2, just about atop of the NFC. I mean, come on. We're Lions fans, right?
Life's good, man.
Life is good. Life's good. Yeah, as Dan Campbell said in his post-game locker room speech, man, that guy is freaking awesome.
I love that guy.
That guy's freaking awesome. Like, how could you not want to play for him? But great win by the Lions. Get some rest this week. Get healthy. Hopefully we can get a few pieces back that we need, and we can go from there. So I don't even know who's our first one out of the bye. I don't even know.
Chargers. You should be there, right?
Duh, yeah, I'll be there. I'll be in LA. Hopefully I can extend my winning streak to 3-0 here this year at away games for the Lions games. So excited for that. And man, beating the Chargers in LA would be a damn good win too. So let's jump right into it. We have quite a lengthy guest segment coming for you guys later. But it was entirely worth it. It's what the people want. If we're going to have any lengthy guest segment, you'll want it to be this one. So we're going to try to move a little bit quicker through the other portions of this podcast, and we can dive right into it. Starting off with the recap of last week, we had some good games. We had a few movers in the power rankings, so really excited to get into those. Hunter, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, kicking us off, we have the number 1 team, Langs football team, taking on the Flying Circus. Langs football team winning that one, 115-94. Not much surprise there. Mark has a great team this year, but Ashton just keeps on rolling, and they're certainly the team to beat this year.
Yeah, Ashton's bad weeks are, 95 points, 100 points, 115 points. Doesn't feel like a dominant performance from him. But when a bad week is putting up 115, like that's scary. That's scary.
You're in a good spot.
Great spot. So tough loss for the Circus. But he's still right in the mix of things. Still has a great team, and I would expect him to bounce back. So on to the next game, we have the Fort Wayne Mad Ants and Turn Your Head in Golf. I have to take a second to.
Can't stop laughing looking at the score. I'm sorry, producer, but my gosh, 41 points is.
I hate to say this, and let me preface by saying we appreciate everything that Trent does for us. He puts in a lot of work, and
the quality of this podcast would be shit.
It would be terrible.
We would have quit by now.
But I do have to say, he took a while to edit last week's video. It didn't come out until Sunday. And he must have also forgot to set his lineup or something.
There's correlation here. Some are saying.
I don't know, like a lack of focus in the editing, a lack of focus in the lineup setting. I don't know what happened. I truly don't. It was a busy week in Sin City for the guy, and we can all respect that. Absolutely. But 40 points, 40.
Yeah, it's crazy. It certainly doesn't help when your star QB, Patty Mahomes, goes into Denver and puts up not even 6 fantasy points. That's a team that he's never lost to as a starter. That was his first divisional road loss in the AFC West. That is insane to me. He is that good. That is his first loss. He's been not in the league for a very long time, but he's been a starter for 5-6 years. Terrible performance from him. I expect his team to bounce back. His team is just like the other side of that game, the Fort Wayne Mad Ants. I think those are two very inconsistent teams. 1 week they can put up 140 and be the top scorer in the week. The next week they can put up the lowest score. This week happened to be the Mad Ants on top. Turn your head and golf on the bottom. I expect both teams to be in playoff contention moving forward, though.
Yeah, good win by the Mad Ants. Tough performance by Trent, but I would not be surprised if he bounces back. So we'll see where we go from there. But great win by Muzz, and on to next week for the two of those teams. So moving on to our next matchup, Mr. Clark Bar, you want to take this one away? I mean, good performance by you.
Yep. I took on the Dust Balls, my rival, first matchup this year. Beat them 121-119. It was a high scoring affair. My team barely edges it out. I was up 1 point going into Monday Night Football with Devontae Adams going, and he laid up a stinker for me. I don't know what's going on there in Las Vegas. Same thing with Trent's team, but Jimmy G just he's not good. He's not a good football player. Very good looking man. Not a good football player.
Great chin. Great jawline.
Great chin. Amazing chin.
Amazing chin, but not a great arm.
Not gonna win football games.
No, good chins don't win NFL games, and we watched that firsthand. You watched that firsthand there Monday night at Ford Field. Did you see his chin in person? That jawline?
I didn't have the greatest seat, so I was up a little bit. And my eyesight's not the greatest. You can tell my glasses, but I could still see his jawline from the second deck.
Yeah.
That chiseled.
Anyways, where were we?
Great performance by my squad. If my team's able to put up 121 with Devontae Adams laying damn near a goose egg, I'll be happy with that. Liking where my team's heading.
And 121 is a good score. What is that? Good for second in the league this week. So
in the league this week.
That's right. So great performance by you. Move to what is that? 6-2, right? 6-2 is good, man.
Big win over the rival.
For sure. So on to our next matchup. We had Chuck's Crumb Bums against the Golden Taint Warriors. Not the closest of matchups. Both teams had a pretty good week, but the Crumb Bums had a better week. I mean, they put up the best score in the league, and I mean, good for the Crumb Bums, right? Like, all the odds are stacked against them, and for him to come out and put on a performance like that, I mean, well done, Chuck. That's all I can say is well done.
Well done, Chuck. Now tied for third with Turn Your Head and Golf for that third spot in the gold division in the playoffs. Hopefully he's able to sneak in there. Unlike his Skull Vikings, which they suffered a tough L this weekend with Kirk Cousins going down. Unfortunate. They got Josh Dobbs at the deadline. Hopefully he can still suck. And I don't want to see the Vikings ruining the Lions' good season. But enough of the NFL talk. Crumb Bumps put up a nice performance this week, high score on the week. They have a team that can put up points. CeeDee Lamb had an amazing week. You felt the other side of that connection with Dak Prescott. He was balling this week. That connection was working. Jahmyr Gibbs on his team, which Jahmyr Gibbs, I'll be curious to see what his workload looks like once Montgomery comes back off the bye. But Crumb Bums, they're right back in the mix, and really anything can happen in this gold division. I'm excited to see it moving forward.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It feels like there's 5 different teams that could really compete for even a 1 seed at this point. I mean, I know you're 6-2, but still with a good chunk of the season left, it's just so tight. It's such a tight race, and I love that. So on to our 5th and final matchup. Some called it the Toilet Bowl. Some had other names for it that I'm not going to repeat here on camera. The Ogama Do You Jobbers, the 1-6 Ogama Do You Jobbers, versus the 1-6 Southside Silly Sliders. And to be honest with you, the Southside Silly Sliders went back to their old form. I've been begging all year to play somebody that scores 80 points. Well, Justin hit it on the dot, and I had a pretty solid performance myself.
Yeah, I'll say one thing. Your team did what they've been doing all year. You finished as, I believe, the third or fourth highest score on the week. This week, you didn't happen to play the top scorer on the week, so you got to win, which most weeks that will get you a win. Your team, they've been putting up points all year. I think it shows. I think you're third in total points for. You finally got to play someone who didn't put up points, and you came out with a win. And now you're sitting there, and I believe you're 2 games back out of the playoffs in that Maroon division. So huge win for your squad moving forward. Hopefully, you can gain some momentum and get back in the playoff hunt.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I was cheering for my team this weekend, but I'll also say I was cheering for you, Hunter, and I was cheering for. Oh gosh, who was it? Lang. I was cheering for Lang this week. I hate to say it, but I need Mark to lose. I need Mudge to lose for me to even have a chance. Right now, I'm sitting 2 games behind Mudge, and I'm sitting 2.5 behind Mark. So that Week 14 matchup, I speak on this later, but that Week 14 matchup against Mark at the end of the season, man, I'm hoping it might mean more than it would at this point in the season. So good win by my team. We're looking to keep it rolling, and if we can string together a couple wins, I think we could put ourselves right in the mix.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great week from you guys, and I hope to see you string some wins together moving forward. But I guess moving on, we got our power rankings, and we didn't have power rankings last week. Last week we dove into the playoff hunt. There's not much movement. I'll say, the top 2. No surprise. You got Ashton at 1, me at 2. I don't think there's going to be any objection from anyone in the league at this point. Those are the 2 best teams in the league. Moving on to the 3 spot, we got the Mad Ants climbing up. I have been dogging them recently for their inconsistent performances, but they've been stringing together some good performance recently, and I think they're solidified as the 3rd spot in the league.
They look good. They have that team has a lot of players that can just put up points. And that's really what you look for in a fantasy football team. And good for Jake, even through some of these tough weeks that he's had. I mean, I think he even, if my memory serves, had a week in the 50s or 60s. And a good team overcomes adversity like that. And his team is doing exactly that. So I do think it's warranted that the Mad Ants did slip into that 3 spot. And, welcome to the top 3 Mad Ants. Let's see what you do with it. I'm excited for him. And I'm curious to see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on, though, we got the 4 spot. We got the Circus. They're dropping down a spot. They lost to Ashton, number 1 spot. Can't blame them too much for that. They didn't put up enough points to, I think, just stay even at that 3 spot. But dropping down the 4 spot, I think they're still a top 5 team in the league moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mark has a really good team, right? Like he's had a lot of really solid wins, and he's had some tough losses. I mean, 3 of his 4 losses have come to number 1 and 2 in the league, I believe. Yep. And, it's something that Mark will touch on a little bit later, because when you have a team like his, I don't see a lot of losses on his schedule. His team's so consistent. It feels like his bad weeks too are above a lot of people's good weeks. And so I think Mark is going to string together, a few more wins down the line. And I think he will find himself comfortably in the 2 spot there in that Maroon division.
Yep, I agree. And moving on, we got another Maroon division member. We got the Dust Balls sitting at the 5 spot. Tough loss to me. They put up a great performance. Can't blame them too much. They just happened to play someone that scored 2 points more than them. Most weeks, 119 is going to get you a win. But I like them at the 5 spot here. They are a top 5 team moving forward. And I think you have some work ahead of you if you want to beat either them or the Circus for that final playoff spot in the Maroon division.
Yeah, I think the 5 is a good spot for Denver. I mean, it feels like they've been everywhere in these power rankings. They've been top 3. They may have even been bottom 3 at some point, and now they're right back in the middle at the 5. I would say you have to feel for Mudge. I mean, he's had 2 really, really close losses with 2 really solid performances, right? He played me. I think I won 124.5 to 124. And then he just played you 21 to 119. Yep. Those are great performances by his team that just didn't end up as a win. So Mudge, I want to feel bad for you. I don't, because there's no one that's had it worse than me. Everyone else feel bad for much, because those are two really tough losses. And I mean, the difference between, what is he, 4-4? The difference between 4-4 and 6-2 is just astronomical. So had those two games gone the other way, I think Mudge would be sitting pretty. But 4-4 is, a dangerous spot. So we'll see what happens with his squad.
Yeah, definitely. At number 6, we got the Crumb Bums. They shot up the power rankings to number 6 spot. I believe they're in the number 9 spot the last time that we did these. Strung together a couple good wins, and now they're tied for a playoff spot in the Gold Division. Not much surprise here. I think the Crumb Bums are looking pretty solid here.
Yeah, the Crumb Bums, like I just mentioned a bit ago, good for them, because they've had everything thrown their way and they've managed to power through it and still show that they have the ability to win games. Right now, they hold the longest winning streak, I think, in the D League at the moment, and they have a date with myself coming up here this week. So I think this is a big week for both myself and the Crumb Bums, because there's a lot on the line for both squads, and I'm kind of nervous. I might be catching the Crumb Bums when they're hot, so we'll see.
I did just fact check you, and they do have the longest win streak, and it is a mighty 2 wins in a row. This league is beating up on each other right now.
I love that.
Wouldn't want it any other way.
I would not. So on to the 7th spot. Myself, the Ogama Do You Jobbers, a big, much needed win to kind of pull myself out of the depths and really give myself a chance to still compete here. So I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts? I feel like my chances of making the playoffs aren't great, but they're still there.
Absolutely. I think if you lose this week, then you're totally out of the playoff hunt. You're kind of in the spot where, you are in the spot where the sliders are right now, 1-7 on the outside looking in. But now you're still on the outside looking in, but you're only 2 games back. Your team all year has consistently been putting up points. As we mentioned earlier, you're 3rd in points for. The problem isn't you and your squad. The problem is that you just happen to face a top scorer every single week. I think the 7th spot's a good spot. You are only 2-6, but I don't think the record shows the full story here. I think you have a top 5 team, and as long as you don't face a top scorer moving forward, I think you can sneak into that playoff spot, as I alluded to in the most recent episode.
Yeah, 7's a funny spot. It's like when someone asks you to rate something out of 10 and like you liked it, but you didn't love it. So you're like 7, right? 7. Because it wasn't an 8 and you liked it a little bit more than a 6. So you're like, it was a 7. And that's how I feel like my team is, right? Like they're good, but we don't love them. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, we have a chance, and that's all we can ask for going into the back half of the season. So on to number 8, staying at the 8 spot from the last time we did these rankings, the Golden Taint Warriors. Decent performance last week, unfortunately, matched up with the Crumb Bums, who did have a great week. So Josh drops a game, doesn't move in the power rankings. I feel like this spot is fair. I don't know. I mean, this season just feels so crazy with how everything is going.
Yeah, I feel like, especially in the Gold Division, it's still wide open. Josh is sitting here at the 8 spot. He's 3-5, and he's still only 1 game out of the playoff hunt. Only 3 games out of having the bye in the Gold Division. Anything can happen moving forward. I think he may be in the 8 spot in the power rankings, but this team is very much alive in the playoff hunt.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it, right? Like, you think about it, being in the bottom 3 in the power rankings, you're like, his team must suck, right? No, like like you said, a game out of playoffs and a ton of season left. Like we could be talking here in 4 weeks, and he could be sitting at the 1 in the division. So I think that's the cool part of it. And take these with a grain of salt, because there's so much football left to be played.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to the 9 spot, though, we have a guy that is currently in the playoff hunt or playoff race. I believe he has a 3rd place tiebreaker over the Crumb Bums. We got Turn Your Head and Golf at the 9th spot here. It is a playoff team, but the committee had to dock him some for putting up 40 points. I mean, you can't do that and stay still.
No, you can't put up 40 points and expect to stay where you're at. So, do I think it was a absolutely brutal week? Yeah, I do, but do I think he has an absolutely brutal team? No, I don't. And I think there's a chance that he triples his score next week, which wouldn't be that hard to do when you put up 40 points. But nevertheless, I do think that is something that he can do easily, and we wouldn't be surprised to see him put up 120 this week and get back in the win column. So yeah, he's at the 9. He had a tough week, but I think he's very much still in the mix.
Absolutely. And then moving on to the 10th spot. Sorry, Justin, there's no surprise here, but the Sliders just having a down year. We're not going to take away the three-peat that happened from you, but this year is just not your year, and I think it's almost time to throw in the towel. I don't know how you can throw in the towel in a redraft league, but it's looking. I mean, he is only 3 games out of the playoffs, so realistically, anything can happen. There is still time for him to make the turnaround, but I unfortunately just don't see it happening. It's time for some new blood in the playoffs. I'm sorry, Justin.
Yeah, can you imagine if, like, we talked about this, maybe even episode 1 of the podcast. We talked about it so early on, but Justin making the playoffs at 5-8 and then winning the championship was crazy, right?
Gosh.
Can you imagine the story if this guy starts 1-7? I mean, hell, the Lions started 1-7. Wait, I think 1-7 last year, or maybe 1-8. And ripped off a bunch of wins in the back half of the season. So I don't see it happening either, but it would be pretty damn cool to see if he somehow pulls it off. So Justin stays at the 10. No surprise to anybody. Sorry, Justin, I'm counting you out too.
You have to if you want to make it.
Cool. And then I do just want to quickly run through this week's matchups. We don't want to take too much time in this spot. We're actually running a little bit longer than I thought we would, as we do have a long guest segment coming up here after this. Really quick, let's fly through these. First matchup we have Turn Your Head and Golf versus the Flying Circus. Both 4-4 teams. Both teams coming off a loss.
Both 3 seeds in the respective divisions. Yes, if I'm not mistaken.
So this feels like a pretty even matchup. I do think Mark might have the overall better team, but Trent does have the capability to bounce back and pull one off. So I think that should be a great game.
Should be a good one. And then moving on, we got the Dust Balls at 4-4 taking on the Golden State Warriors at 3-5. Another matchup of 2 teams that, well, I guess the Dust Balls are in the playoffs. The Warriors are on the outside looking in, but both teams that could very well be in the playoffs come week 15.
Yeah, I think it feels like every game on the schedule at this part of the year means something, and this one means a lot for both teams. I mean, Taint on the outside looking in, but with very much a chance, and then Dust Balls in, but with me kind of nipping at his heels a little bit. So I mean,
right there,
yeah, like a loss here for the Dust Balls, and all of a sudden it's a one game lead, and kind of feels like a big one for the 2 of them. So on to our next matchup, we have the Crumb Bums versus the Ogama Do You Jobbers, a matchup of a 4-4 and a 2-6. I don't really know what to expect with this one. I mean, Chuck's team has been playing really, really well. And like I said, I'm nervous that I'm going to catch him when he's hot. So a win here would be really big for my team, but I don't know.
I think a win here is very big for both teams. As you alluded to earlier, the Crumb Bums are the hottest team in the league with a 2-game winning streak. You guys are both on the outside looking in at this point in the season. I think a win right here would gain some valuable momentum for both squads. I'm looking forward to seeing the winner of this matchup.
Yeah, well, we haven't strung 2 together all year because we only have 2 wins. And so to string 2 together here would be big for me. And hopefully I can take down the Crumb Bums, but I'm expecting a really tough game out of Chuck. So on to our next one. We have the Mad Ants versus Southside Silly Sliders. I feel like this is an interesting one because it almost feels like if Jake has another dominating performance, we can almost start to maybe slot him in and solidify that 2 seed in the gold.
Yeah, I agree here. On paper, this doesn't look like the most exciting matchup, but when you think about it, I think it's a loss. The Sliders, if the Sliders lose here, this will absolutely solidify them as out of the playoff hunt. But they win this matchup, they get a couple of L's in the Maroon division. Anything can happen. They can sneak in as that 5-8 team and just take over the playoffs. Whereas the Mad Ants, they're really looking forward to a win here. And alluding to the next matchup, if the team in front of them gets an L here, they could be tied for the first seed if they have a win here.
Yeah, I mean, matchup number 5 of the week is going to be honestly the one we've been waiting for all year. The 2 highest scores in the team, in the league, the 2 best records in the league. I mean, what more can you ask for than Clark Bar's football team versus Lang's football team? I mean, it's the battle of the football teams, and I'm damn excited to see what happens here.
The football teams, I've had this one circled on my calendar since probably week 3 or 4. Once we started realizing who the 2 top dogs in the league were. It's unfortunate this week. CMC's on a bye. It hurts to not have him, but I'm confident with the rest of my squad. I think I can still edge one out here, and I'm looking forward to this matchup. I think this is going to have some, maybe not playoff implications down the line, but hey, we have a 3-point playoff buffer now, and this could impact seeding come week 15, 16, and could be looking at this matchup thinking this could make all the difference come playoff time.
For sure. Should be a good one. So with that said, that wraps up that segment. Let's get to the segment everyone's been waiting for. I mean, this is 10 episodes in that I haven't even been able to wait for. I've been having sleepless nights thinking about getting this guy on the podcast. So without further ado, let's kick it over to that. See you on the other side.
See you.
Welcome, everybody. I'm just going to sit here in a minute. I made a mistake. I forgot to start recording the first time. So Mark's already been here, giving us some answers, some questions, but we're going to make him say it twice because we're trying to get all the extra screen time with Mr. Mark Mauser that we can get. So as I introduced him the first time around, the man, the myth, the legend, and last but not least, the flying circus, Mr. Mark Mauser. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I'm just trying to steal a little bit of extra time with you, man. I miss you.
I miss you guys too. Hey, it's a pleasure to be on your show tonight. I love it.
We just wanted some extra screen time from you, Mark. So let's get right into it. As we know, but maybe not the crowd knows, what are some of your favorite D-League memories?
Well, like I said, the first one was Noah. And it was like the second year to the third year or something. And Akers was with San Francisco. He kicked the field goal to put the game into overtime. And I was like 1 point down. And we go into overtime, texting back and forth, Noah.
Oh, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Akers comes in and kicks the field goal, and I win by 2 points. Not 10 minutes later, your dad calls me up and says, "What in the hell did you do with Noah? I have never seen him like this." And I explained it to him, and he says he's laying on the couch in the fetal position, mumbling something about a circus and acres. And that was really great.
I mean, deja vu here.
David Akers used to be the kicker to get every year. Like, he was a beast. He was so good.
He was the man. Yes, he got me a lot of victories. And then the other one with Hunter, like I was saying, he had me by about a half a point or 0.6 or something like that. Yeah, hey, great game, Hunter, tough one. And next day I wake up and they say I won. ESPN had to make an adjustment on one of my running backs, and he ends up losing by a point. I still, to this day, feel really bad about that, Hunter. I really do.
That is the only time I've been affected by a stat adjustment. It's funny you bring that up. So going into last Monday night, I'm up by 1 against Mudge. I have Devontae Adams. I was debating on just benching Adams, taking my 1 point victory, and just leaving the matchup. But that matchup back in 2015 came back in my head, and I was like, if I lose on a stat adjustment because I didn't play Devontae Adams, I'm gonna be so sad. So, I still remember that matchup. It still haunts me to this day.
Yeah, it's some great games. And Noah, I always look forward to you. I looked it up today, and I beat you more than anybody in the league, and maybe that's why I like playing you so much.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mark. You and everybody else, my friend.
Well, hey, you're having a tough year, but keep your chin up, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what's going to happen.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mark, I'm always looking out for you. And, maybe that matchup in 2015, maybe it was an ESPN stat adjustment, or maybe it was a commish of the D League adjustment and nobody knew the difference. So maybe, I bumped you an extra point or two and got you there.
Appreciate it, buddy.
No, but I always love playing you, Mark. It's always a tough matchup. And I'll tell you what, when you see the flying circus on the schedule, it's terrifying, but also very exciting.
Well, I'll tell you what, another thing. Last year, I was heartbroken last year with Josh. Josh beat me the first time we met in the regular season by less than 2 points. So we get into the semifinals, and we play again. He beats me 76, 72 on a pass that Brady threw to Evans in the end zone, and he dropped it. Every time I hear Evans' name, I want to spit. But Josh went on to win. Congratulations to him last year.
Yeah, well, I guess I don't remember exactly what the final week scores were, but would you have won had Evans caught that? Would you have won the following week?
I beat everybody in the league by 50 points because Tom had 50 and Evans had like 40, and it was just a slaughter. And in July I was still pissed about it. So.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mark, that's a tough way to go down. But if there's any team that can bounce back and make a run this year, it's got to be yours. I mean, yeah, there's some other good teams in the league, but how are you feeling about your team, this far into the season?
Well, I learned my lesson years ago to even though somebody's having a bad year at the beginning, to hang on to them, because at the end, you never know what that guy's going to do. So I'm sticking with. I went heavy on the running backs with Henry and Pachenko and Mixon. And so, yeah, I'm looking good. Jeff Goff, yeah, I love him, Jared.
Yeah.
He's St. Brown, man, who can't love that guy?
Right.
So,
absolutely.
No, I'm feeling pretty confident. I think I'm either going into a death spiral or I'm going to maybe challenge Aston. So, we'll see.
Yeah. I think
it happened.
I think that's well said. And I want to bring us back just a couple sentences there. You were talking about Brady and Brady and Evans on your team last year. Brady feels like a guy that you would always go out and get. You always have going into the draft. You have this list. It's the notorious Mark Mauser list. Mark, who's on your list? I ain't telling. No one ever knows who's on this list. Mark, I have to ask, what kind of intel are you gathering in the offseason? How do you go about selecting the guys that you do?
Well, Tom Brady is always on my team, so that's a given. But I'll go through and run a copy of all the fantasy points of all the players. And the thing I look at are touchdowns. And if the guy maybe has 900 yards, but he has 16 touchdowns, yeah, I'm going to look at that guy real hard. Pacheco for Kansas City, the guy just runs hard. I love him. And when he came around, that he was me. But Henry was 150 points out of leading the league last year, but he missed a game. So I was glad to get him.
Yeah.
And then once I got St. Brown, I liked the combo, quarterback, hell of a receiver. So I got Jared Goff too. So you live and die with the Lions. I'll tell you what. I've never been all in on the Lions, and this year I'm all in, and I got so many years left. God damn it, win a Super Bowl.
The time is now.
I agree. This is the year.
Yeah. But as far as the draft went, the reason Ashton was so good this year, he sat right next to me on the couch. And he was looking at my list. Yeah, just like he graduated from high school, looking at somebody else's work,
So there we have it. So now we know why Ashton is so damn good this year. He was peeking at your list.
Yeah, he was sitting right there. Yeah, you're rubbernecking all the time, looking around.
Oh man, Mark, you're killing me, man. You're killing me. I gotta stay focused here and locked in, or else I'm laughing too hard. So, I have to ask this. Having Jake in the league, I mean, I'm sure it's always just a hell of a time. And shout out to that white Hennessy I just saw you take a sip of. Man, is that stuff smooth. Look at that. Can we get a free promo? I'm not sponsored by Hennessy Pure White, but I should be. Man, but anyways, back to the question. Having Jake in the league, it's got to be awesome playing your son. But outside of Jake, is there any other matchups that you circle throughout the year that, you just look forward to?
Well, like I said, I've got a winning record against you, Noah, so I'm always happy to play you. And just about anybody. I just enjoy, being around you guys. Hell, we've known each other since 9-year-old Doc Slazak's baseball team, So it's easy for me to see you guys and communicate with you guys years later, and I really appreciate that. I really do. And I enjoy playing y'all, you're all different. All the teams are different. But Ashton, I'd like to beat. Son of a bitch beat me twice this year so far. So
maybe you can rematch in the playoffs.
Well, my 4 losses, 3 of them, 1 was against you, Hunter, and 2 was against Ashton. So, we'll see what happens at the end of the year. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough schedule right there.
Well, I'll tell you what, Mark, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'll say the last week of the regular season, week 14, you and I have a little date on the schedule, and maybe it'll be meaningless. Maybe it'll be for a playoff spot. Who knows? But I'll tell you what, I might be looking forward to that one more than any.
Well, it's never meaningless between me and you, Noah. You know that. I mean, there's too much pride in that. So, no, I enjoy playing every one of you guys. It's always a good time, and I really enjoy this time of year, football and communicating with you guys and sending the 6 o'clock text, in the morning. So
picking up those free agents at 4 a.m. while the rest of us are sleeping, slight advantage there. I'm just going to say it.
Yeah, I did steal a couple today.
Well, I think, I speak for myself, I speak for Hunter, and I speak for the rest of the league when I say the league wouldn't be what it is today without you. And I think it's such a funny dynamic with all of us guys and then you mixed in with it, but we wouldn't have it any other way. It would not be the D League without the Flying Circus. It would not be the D League without Mark Mauser. So you may appreciate us, Mark, but believe me when I say we all appreciate you more than you know, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you in the league.
Well, I really appreciate it, and I love you guys. So let's get down to some football. I want to win this one this year.
Yeah, hey, that brings us to our next question. I'm not in the Maroon division, but do you have an idea of what you think the playoffs are going to shape out to be in your division?
Well, Ashton, obviously, he's got the killer team.
Got a super team.
Yeah. Me and Mudge keep going back and forth. He loses a game, I win one. I lose, he wins one. It's going to be a flip up. But I never count Justin out. God damn, how many times that guy's beat me. And he's such a good guy. And I hate to see it. He's really felt on some hard times this year. But Noah, you never know. There's 6 weeks, 7 weeks left in the season. Hey. String a couple wins together, and who knows?
Yeah.
Hey, just looking for that last playoff spot right now in the Maroon division.
Yeah, I think the third spot in that division could be a battle. Obviously that 2 and 3 seed could be big for either you and Mudge. Justin at 1 win, myself at 2. I think we have a long road ahead if there's any chance for either of us to make it. But at the moment, only 2 games out and kind of nipping at your heels a little bit. Are you nervous? Are you confident? What are you feeling about that?
Oh, my boys are really confident. I'm going to throw them in the lineup and see what happens. If you screw up, you hit the bench. I just try to put in the best ones and just like everybody else. So we'll see what happens. It's always exciting. This is the witching hour, right?
That's what they call it. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, you never know. But you're having a great year, Hunter. That's your division's looking pretty good. Jake's doing pretty good in there, and
It's a tight race.
He's helped me out a lot. I got to give a shout out to Jake. We had a mock draft about a week before we drafted, and he's saying you can't pick up a kicker in the 6th round. I said, yeah, but I like Tucker from, and he said, no, you got to wait. So, no, it takes a while to get used to drafting. Really, it really does for me anyway. So.
Absolutely. And I think we have a lot of wild cards in our league where you can do all the mock drafts you want, but when it comes down to draft night, anything can happen.
Oh, yeah. You think you want this guy, he's gone, and you got 2 other guys. Who do you pick? And it seems to go really fast, and all of a sudden you look at your team, and I'm pretty happy with mine this year. I'm pretty pleased. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think your team looks really tough. You already played Jake once this year. He is your rival. It's the infamous Mauser Bowl. Coming up here in week 11, you have Jake again, and then who knows, he's fighting for a playoff spot too down the line. I mean, what would it mean to play Jake in the playoffs and have, everything on the line?
Well, it's kind of touchy. You never want your son to lose. He doesn't want me to lose. I don't want him to lose, but we don't really talk about it that much. We talk about our lineups and stuff like that, but he did mention the other day that he had a better team than me, and I told him, hey, I thought we settled that 2 weeks ago.
Oh, baby. Mark coming with the heat on the podcast. I love it. Well, I'll tell you, you guys, have at least one more coming up and maybe one after that. So I, coming from me selfishly, I hope the luck stays in your favor, Mark. I'm always rooting for you. I'm always rooting for our division. So we'll see what happens. That's all we can do.
Well, thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. And,
for sure.
We'll see what happens, huh?
For sure. Well, Hunter, I do have one last question for Mark, but before we get there, anything else you want to say while we do have the pleasure of having Mark here on the podcast?
No, I think you just said it right there. It was a pleasure having you on, Mark. League favorite guest for a reason. It was a pleasure. I look forward to playing you every year. I look forward to those texts, and I hope to see your team again in the playoffs.
Well, thanks, Hunter. I hope I don't see you in the playoffs right away.
Maybe the championship. One of us needs a ring here.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, Mark, I have one more question. I've been waiting 10 episodes for this. I've been waiting years for this, and at this point, I just need a final answer. I need the truth. You need to let the people know what actually happened. Mark, who spilled the Chet?
Noah, come on. I talked to you, and I've talked to Cam. You spilled the Chet. I'm sorry. All I know is it took me hours to clean all that popcorn out of that pan.
Guys, I don't know what to say. Before I go to bed tonight, I'm going to watch the video on my phone of Mark saying Cam spilled the Chet because I just can't bear to stand this. Hey, Mark, who spilled the Chet?
Chet. Chad? It was Cam.
Yeah,
Cam did it.
Cam spelled the Chet. Yeah.
But in all seriousness, Mark, seriously, thank you for coming on, man. It was so awesome to have you. We'll definitely have to have you again, especially if you're making the playoff run that we expect you to. So seriously, thank you for coming on. While you have the floor and while you have the team that you do, anything, you want to say to the league, this is your chance to kind of, talk your shit a little bit as, one of the powerhouses there in the Maroon division.
Well, I'm glad to be in this league. Like I said, I'm glad I can still communicate with you guys. I've known you since you were 9 years old, and some of my fondest memories have been Ludington or the Golden Corral in Fort Wayne. You remember?
Man. Oh man!
Yeah.
Don't even get me started.
It's just a pleasure being around you guys, and I really appreciate you having me in your league. To tell you the truth.
Wouldn't be the same without you.
Well, thank you, Mark. Happy to have you on, and we definitely expect to see you here soon. So best of luck the rest of the way. Like I said, I'm staring at that calendar, and I got the flying circus circled on mine. So see you in week 14, and best of luck the rest of the way. Love you.
You got it. Thanks, guys, for having me on.
Mark.
What a segment. I'll be honest.
Man,
I was falling out of my chair. That dude was making me laugh so hard. Mark is so damn funny. When he started talking about when he started talking about Jake, and I know Jake's got to be, he's sitting there in the background, right? He's got to be. And so for Jake to be sitting there listening to Mark just like talk shit, man, that was cracking me up. I mean, what a freaking segment.
I'm right now, best interview that we've had so far. I don't mean to dig at anyone else in the league, but I think they would agree with me too. You know, Mark's a legend, and that was an awesome interview.
Yeah, that was awesome. So with that said, apologies for the long episode here. You know,
hey, we just like talking to each other.
We like talking. That's what we do. We like talking. We like football. We like fantasy football. What more can you ask for? And we sure as hell like Hennessy Pure White. So,
absolutely.
With that said, thank you to any and everyone that made it this far. Really excited to see.
Shout out to Grant.
Yeah.
I'm at the tailgate this weekend. He said he still listens to every episode. If you made it this far, Grant, shout out to you.
Here's what I'm going to say to anyone that actually made it this far. I'm trying to think of a buzzword here. Text me.
Say like comment something or probably not comment. Maybe
text
like
me.
Text Noah or I. Oh, what should we say?
Text me the words Mark Mauser. If you made it this far, text me the words Mark Mauser. I want to see who truly listens to this podcast.
Yep,
I think I might get one or two texts. That's okay. I had fun making it. Did you?
I had a blast making it. You know, I'm excited to see who texts you Mark Mauser. We'll see who's actually the true listeners here.
If you made it this far, text me Mark Mauser. With that said, let's get you out of here. This has been a long one. Hunter, it's always a pleasure with you, man. Anything else you want to kick in, or you want to get out of here?
Hey, looking forward to the matchup with Ashton this week, and I'll see you next week.
All right. Peace, y'all.
Peace.